Hey, what's going on? We are right back at you, coming off the second window, round one of Afrobasket. This is 2021. We're leading to 2021 Afrobasket. And we have a lot to talk about.
Shall we start with Group A?
All right, let's do it. Group A.
So Group A, recap: Tunisia, Central African Republic, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Madagascar. So as expected, Tunisia 3-0 had a great and very efficient tournament. They topped the net ratings that were released yesterday. And I was surprised. The game that surprised me the most was DRC versus Central African Republic. I thought this would be a lot closer, and I actually tipped Central African Republic to win this game just through experience because there was a lot of new faces in the DRC team. So congrats to them for getting the win here. What were your thoughts on Group A?
Tunisia. I mean, we all knew they're pretty much the usual suspects. I call them the usual suspects. We knew they were going to do great, and they did just that. They handled their business, came out there, played incredible basketball. They have a lot of veterans in there. I can't say I really know because I'm a newbie, you know that. But from just watching them and watching those guys play, I can tell they've been around for a while. And they're really comfortable playing out there. They're really, really comfortable, and they impose their will on different teams. So I enjoyed watching them.
I think what was exciting probably about Tunisia was to see some of their new guys. They had a lot of rookies in that team, but led by veterans like Ben Romdan, El Mabrouk, and obviously Abada. These guys all performed as expected, but the rookies did a great job as well. So they're integrating well into the system. I also think shout out to DRC, who had limited preparation, but they showed glimpses of potential, and they actually really took it to Tunisia. That was probably my second exciting match in that group. If DRC can cut the turnovers and find some offense, I think, because their defense isn't that bad. They're big. They got a lot of shot blockers, guys who can get steals. I think if they can work on their offense, they'll be able to start challenging teams like Tunisia.
Well, Coach Liz, you brought up a really good point right there. You talked about turnovers. Tell me a team that did not commit a lot of turnovers.
Oh man, I think I haven't put all these stats together, but generally teams were averaging maybe 20 turnovers a game. I think maybe Tunisia and I want to say Senegal. No, Senegal had like 26 turnovers in that first game. So a lot of teams, it was messy. It was ugly.
Yes, it was. Pretty sloppy at times.
Yeah, second round, I expect the team that can cut this down is really going to help themselves.
True. Could this be because of the lack of preparations? Is it because, most teams just haven't had time to play together? Maybe that's why we've seen a lot of turnovers, huh?
Yeah, a lot of these rosters have a lot of new faces on them. They don't have the same kind of team that Tunisia or even Egypt who have that consistency because of local players. Teams like Nigeria, Senegal, to an extent, only come together 3 days and then boom, game time. And so you're going to see players don't fit well together just yet, and that's causing turnovers.
True. I did enjoy watching DRC also. Shout outs to Omari and that team out there. They, I think they have a chance. They have. Can you? And again, I don't want to jump to probably the next segment of what we're going to be talking about. Can you explain to me just one more time, because I'm sure some of the people watching right now also do not know, how do they advance? So who exactly advances to the next before we break down all the different groups?
All 20 teams now are going to play again in February. So they play each other in their groups again. And then the top 3 teams from each group progress to Afrobasket 2021. So one team from each group is going home.
But not in the first round.
4 more years
to
participate again.
Okay, so you mean right now, let's say Mozambique is going back home?
No, so they get another chance in the second round. Everybody progresses to the second round.
Okay. And then the team that's at the bottom, number 4, that's the one that goes home after the second round.
Yeah.
The second round of the second window.
No, so it'll be the second round, third window.
Third window. So, okay. All right, treat me like a little kid here, all right? No problem at all, because I feel like that right now. So the first window, for instance, was the Cameroon, right?
Yes.
That was the first window, that round, meaning that round, right?
That was round 1, window 1.
Okay, all right. So now we on round 1, window 2.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, all right. So yeah, so now DRC is still going to make it, right? I think they've won enough games, even if they are to lose. How many more games they got to play? It's 2 more games, right?
Basically, the teams who are 3-0 only need to win 1 more game in February, and they qualify. Teams who have won 2 need to win 2. Teams who've won 1 need to win 2 or 3, and teams who are 0-3 need to basically win 3-0. Or alternatively, if you look at, say, Kenya's group, Mozambique group, which is Group B, Kenya would have to lose to Mozambique by more than they beat them to go home.
Wow.
So that's why Group B is going to be interesting, because if Mozambique come out and lose to Senegal and Angola, and Kenya lose to Senegal and Angola, Mozambique would have to beat Kenya by, I think, 24 points to go through on a point difference.
Wow.
So it gets tight. But then what
really
happens
tight.
for some reason Mozambique happens to beat Senegal, and then Kenya loses both games. So that puts pressure on whoever wins their game goes through. So there's a lot of scenarios.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, it gets interesting. Now, there's a slight, should I say, if Rwanda loses, they still advance because they're hosting, right? But if they win, what happens?
Okay, so if Rwanda ends up in the top 3 of their group, they're currently 4th.
Right.
So say they go out and beat Mali and South Sudan in the next round and they finish 3rd. So the top 3 teams in Group D go through, and there's 1 wild card that can be spread amongst the 5 groups. So someone in the 4th position in another group might get a wild card. Say
and
for
how do you
some,
get it?
and the wild card will generally be awarded to the most experienced loser. So someone who's got Afrobasket.
Okay, wait a minute. So wait a minute. It's not. You don't get it out of merit. You get it. You're elected, meaning that we like this team. We think this team. Right.
It's up to FIBA Africa basically to decide who gets the wild card. But if Rwanda, well, it's their tournament at the end of the day, so they're allowed to make the rules. They've made some interesting decisions in the past regarding these wild cards, so expect the unexpected.
What? Okay.
Yeah. But I need to say, so Karabani, that if Rwanda finishes 4th in their group, they get the wild card as hosts, and so the wild card is taken off the table.
And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm all for that. Yeah. But then to have it, if they win, then you have FIBA choose whatever team they like. I mean, come on. Okay.
Yeah. It's not the best system, but for example, back in the day, Senegal often didn't qualify through their zone for Afrobasket because a lot of their players were overseas, and so they didn't qualify. And because it's Senegal and they know what caliber of players they can get in, they used to get the wild card.
So they give it to the usual suspects, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay. All right. Now that system, I don't know. That system is a little suspect to me.
It is what it is.
I guess so. It's their tournament. Like, as you put it, it's their tournament. Okay, so that's for Group A, right? So I'm sure a lot of people understand now. I have a better understanding also. And I would love to start off with my neighbors, Kenya. I know they're not going to be too happy with me, but I wasn't impressed. I really wasn't impressed with the way they played. The last game was incredible, and I feel like they can do that. They can actually play at that caliber, and I think they can play a lot better. I know there were a couple of issues, but hey, who doesn't have any issues out there? Every team has their own types of issues. So let's not come out here and make excuses. It is what it is. It's whatever that you have on the floor. You need to do what you need to do. And Kenya kind of disappointed me. They disappointed. And where they're sitting right now, after you just explained to us what might happen in the next window, is it still the next window or just next round? Jeez,
next really round, next window.
I really got to get a handle on this, right? Okay. Right. I know things are going to get really, really hard for them, and probably the same outcomes that usually a lot of teams from around this area, this region, come across, all because of minor little details here and there. And in addition to that, I do have something else that I want to say. It's the press conference. I was listening to their coach, and I know he probably might not like this. I really didn't like what I was hearing out there. I didn't like it. I felt like they were really nonchalant. Everything was just fine. He was smiling after the loss.
We talked about that, especially yesterday. We had over 20, close to 22, 24 turnovers. And today we did a better job. We had 18, not good yet, not quite as good, but then we got to really work more on it. The other thing is that we've been struggling in the one position. I know that because we are working with makeshift point guards. For that matter, Eric is not really a point guard. He plays two more, and Bosie likewise. So, cause
who's calling you?
Sorry about that.
I just felt like it was all right. We're good.
It's unprofessional to talk like that. I'll be honest.
I want them to be a little hungry. I want to cheer for them. I want to root for them. That's what I want. I really want that, but I just didn't see that hunger.
I had a lot of issues with what was going around that Kenya team. They were overhyped at home. When you're a team like that, you want to fly under the radar. You want teams like Senegal and Angola and even Mozambique to a degree to forget about you and overlook you, because that's an advantage.
Right.
I think, why would you play a practice game against another national team the less than 24 hours before your first game? Why would you do that? In terms of, also, I know Kenyans are renowned for their fitness, but none of your guys have been playing, and so they're going to be tired after that, and then you want them to go up against Senegal. I questioned the rotation and some of the tactics used. I think the guys were pretty lethargic because they were fatigued.
True.
And that says to me that they need to look at how they prepared for this window and make adjustments for the next one. I would stress strategy needs to be looked at, but it's really positive. They've got a lot of area for improvement and they can play a lot better. And I don't think I can say the same for Mozambique.
That is true. Chances are they are going to advance. So chances are, I'll probably give him the nod that, the way things
the likelihood is, like in the second round, Senegal isn't going to send their strongest team because they feel like they only need one win. Angola probably are embarrassed about how they performed. So unless COVID restrictions change, I expect to see a very different looking Angola in February with Interclub and Augusto players back in town and maybe some more overseas guys. So I think realistically, we'll see some different results in this group come February.
Okay.
But I also think someone who we haven't mentioned and we should shout out is Tyler Ongwe who plays for Kenya.
Yes.
In terms of being incredibly valuable, I would say he is the linchpin for that Kenyan team. He had a lot of weight to carry with Bush and Preston being out. And shout out to him for carrying that load. He led from the front in scoring. He assists, rebounds. He almost averaged a triple-double. So we have to acknowledge his great performance as well.
Very true. You mentioned Bush, and where was Griffin? What happened to the two?
To be honest, a lot of our players was out today that we know are very important for us. So, but our group, like, we competed. That's the most important thing. And
Bush was stuck in Congo, is what I'm hearing.
Doing what?
I'm not sure how he didn't realize when Afrobasket was going to be, since he's known since January.
I mean, I knew about it, and I'm not playing.
So how you managed to get stuck in another country in the lead up to this tournament blows my mind. I can understand why a lot of his teammates would have been upset, because he's crucial for them. He's a big body that they need. And then Griffin, I believe, wasn't originally in the final 12, but then when Preston had passport issues, FIBA Africa being difficult as per usual, they needed to bring in a player to substitute Preston. And so Griffin only, because of quarantine rules in Rwanda, he was only available for the last game against Mozambique. But he's definitely, I was surprised he wasn't in the original 12. He's a great captain and leader, and they just didn't have that in the first two games.
Yes. So you mean to tell me they actually did not put him on the roster originally?
I believe so, because they had 10 there, Preston 11, and Bush would have been 12.
But wait a minute, as they qualify, playing against South Sudan, the one player that killed everybody out there was Griffin.
It might also have had something to do with his work, not granting him leave, but it was something very weird about him not being there at the very start. But like every team has issues. They've got eligibility problems. Like Equatorial Guinea in February had 5 players disqualified from playing. They played with 8 or 7, sorry. So federations need to check eligibility. They need to be really well prepared with passports and all the required documents so that this drama doesn't happen, because this really impacts the players. You're expecting certain teammates and they don't come. You've prepared like they are going to be there. So Group D had heavyweights Nigeria and host Rwanda, as well as Mali and your favorite South Sudan. We had some surprises in here, not in the good sense. Obviously, Nigeria took care of business as expected, and then the surprise was really South Sudan finally came to the party with wins over Mali and Rwanda. I shout out to Denga Kuth, who had a great tournament. He worked hard on both ends of the floor. He was super efficient. Also, I like the addition of Jackson McCoy. He's a spark off the bench for them. Very exciting young player. But on the other hand, we had Rwanda, who went 0-3. As hosts, this was really disappointing. I'm a bit worried about what this team is going to look like, especially in the second round. I don't think they've got the depth to bring in new players that can help spark the team. But hopefully they can have some better preparation and tidy up a few things. They could possibly get a win over Mali or South Sudan in the next round.
You think so? Because I think South Sudan is only going to get better and better. I don't know if they...
I'm trying to be positive for Rwanda.
Because South Sudan, all right, okay, let me just, Kenneth Gasana played really well out there. And yes, he's impressive. I give him credit. Like I said, I'm a newbie. I'm watching these guys, some of these guys, you know, for the very first time. I've only seen highlights, so watching full games and everything. And he was great. He was great. The team, you know, at times we spoke about this already, taking care of the ball. That's an issue with the turnovers here and there. So they have a lot to work on. I'm not going to go over everything you just talked about because I agree with you 100%. You know, I agree with you.
The one thing that really upset me about Rwanda